Hello, and welcome to Around the Verse, our weekly in-depth look at the development of Star Citizen. I'm Sandy Gardner, and joining me once again is game director Chris Roberts.
Yep, hey Sandy. Good to be here for another ATV.
It is good to have you back. And first off, we wanted to quickly say congratulations to the team for getting the Alpha 2.6.1 live and into the hands of all of our backers.
Yes, well done to the team. There were a ton of great updates that have gone into this patch, including new balance changes to ships and weapons and map updates in Star Marine. But the biggest accomplishment was the introduction of regional servers and the single-player mega map. I know there's a lot of people in Europe and Australia quite happy that they have much lower pings than they used to do playing the game.
Very cool. And 2.6.1 wasn't the only thing to go live last week. Our new communication platform, Spectrum, was rolled out as well. You can sign in right now to chat with devs and fellow players and use the much improved forums there.
Yes, they are very, very cool. And along with the patch release, we've updated the production schedule to show how our estimates lined up with our actual deliveries. Comparing the two gives some interesting insight to how we plan our scheduling, and obviously this will be an ongoing thing we'll be doing for each oncoming patch.
And last but not least, we have one more exciting thing that we'll be introducing this week. Tomorrow, we'll be launching the concept sale for the Anvil Hurricane.
Yeah. So this fighter is going to be a great addition to the lineup. It's one of my favorite designs we have right now. So developed originally for the Second Tavarian War, this two-seater puts a heavy focus on firepower. That's all I'll say for now because I don't want to spoil too much before you get to see the cool brochure tomorrow, and it is very cool. But make sure you stick around for an exclusive first look at the Hurricane at the end of the show.
First up, though, let's go now to this week's studio update to hear the latest developments from the Los Angeles team.
Hey everyone, I'm Eric Tyron Davis, Senior Producer here in Los Angeles. As many of you know, the LA office houses several disciplines working across multiple aspects of Star Citizen. So we wanted to give you a quick update on the progress we've been making. One of our biggest teams is the technical content team, led by the great Sean Tracy. Members of his team span across 3 time zones. And if you were to describe that team, the function of that team on a t-shirt, it reads something like solving problems you didn't know you had in ways you wouldn't understand. So to understand those solved problems, here's some of the things that they did. To start, a portion of the team is working with engineering on the new damage system. As we've shown in the past, some ships are already using the new damage system, which create much more random and organic damage effects via procedurally generated materials and an internal skeleton that appears when the metal just melts away. We've also been working on adding the physics-driven destructible behavior to our item system 2.0. Initially, this just meant converting the existing functionality into the new item 2.0 health and damage system. However, this work is much more than just a port. Networking, persistence, and VFX functionality will be improved, and it also extends destructibility to a broader class of entities, including props. Members of the tech content team also work with animation to implement the introduction of facial idols for pilots of all ships. Now, no more death stares when flying over to save someone from Korea. Additionally, tech content developed a tool for marking up zones that are used by the renderer to hide and show different areas on a character mesh when layered pieces of clothing and armor are equipped. So basically, if your character is wearing a shirt and then you put a jacket on, the zone culling tells the renderer to hide and ignore any part of the shirt that is out of sight. One of Tech Content's many contributions to this powerful feature was to create a tool that automatically zones and splits any number of assets regardless of topology. This allows us to quickly implement the zone culling feature onto an already massive database of character art in a fraction of the time. So in a nutshell, as opposed to manually updating existing armor and clothing to work with this new feature, this tool will automate that process and save us a lot of dev time. Now, our tech design team has been working on many different elements of the game. And one of their many tools to help everyone visualize expected gameplay is to develop prototypes of upcoming features and gameplay. Recently, we've had 2 prototypes come out of tech design. The first was based off of Chris's initial vision for the interaction system, which in a nutshell is the interface by which players will be able to control and manipulate various objects in the game world, such as ships, control panels, weapons, and a whole lot more. Once they roughed out that system, they worked with programming and UI to ensure that the prototype functionality was not only clear on what we're trying to achieve, but actually possible. And the second prototype was how the player controls the properties of items to manage their signals generated by entities like spaceships. For example, how the power is managed to shields, weapons, and thrusters, which allow us to manage our emissions and engage in a kind of a stealthy gameplay. The foundational work of this prototype will allow us to change properties of these items so that we can determine how upgrading will be desirable and fixes our previously limited system, which we were unable to balance, and provide a much more direct way to implement gameplay via simple numerical values. They're also deep into the setup of the Drake Cutlass Black, Buccaneer, and the rework of the RSI Aurora, as well as another ship we can't quite discuss yet. And lastly, they're taking a pass at updating our ship stats page on the website to bring all the information about our ships up to the most current specs. As part of this change, we plan on providing regular updates about any changes to each of our ships going forward. Now, over on the engineering side, the team has been working on instance properties, which allow designers to modify any part of an entity component in editor or in game. With this feature, designers do not have to create tons of similar entity templates for our game. They just need to expose some parameters, which the designer can then modify inside the editor. This will save asset storage space and really reduce the number of entity components, but at the same time, allow for much more variations. And obviously, with the ultimate aim to create seamless transitions through our entire universe, the engineering team is making progress on object container streaming by changing some of our core engine code, which will radically increase the amount of content we can put in the game all at once without sacrificing any performance. For example, we're currently replacing the old prefab system in the hangar and shops with an object container in the preparation for this expected streaming. On the radar front, we've added an extra timer value to the object data bank, which will be used to specify how much time an entry can remain as an echo contact, as well as implementing the metadata component interface, which is an entity component that can be attached to any entity to make them radar detectable. We've also added an object data bank linking and unlinking feature so that entities will inherit databank entries from their parent. This will allow a player to inherit information from the ship he or she is currently sitting in. And then we're also working on new scanner gameplay tied into the new radar system that build on the mechanic of revealing more or hidden information on radar objects. We're really excited about this addition because it will have a lot of potential elements to scanning another ship and will be instrumental in the eternal struggle between smugglers and law enforcement, for example. Lastly, the engineering team is working on lighting states to provide a little bit more context when it comes to space stations, ship interiors, and other sorts of man or alien-made environments. We want the lights to be able to have various altered states to reflect certain situations, like low power or emergency lockdown. While we currently have a way to accomplish this using layer switching, it has its downsides, such as requiring duplicate lights for each state and having no options for transition animations. We're therefore developing a new entity called a light group that will take control of these lights that are assigned to it. With its own internal state machine, the light group will be able to modify its lights depending on the current state. For example, switching from a normal light state to an emergency light state and then back. You can think of it as the ultimate light switch. Now, over on the character side, we've moved further down the pipeline on many of our new outfits. Specifically in Squadron 42, we have lots of deck crew who work a variety of jobs, and some of them need to work on the exterior of ships in the vacuum of space. This deck crew outfit is coming along nicely and is firmly in the high poly modeling phase. Also, you've seen the Explorer spacesuit recently in the newsletter and on our previous updates, and it's moving along nicely as well. The team is finalizing texturing and has already been sent to rigging, which will allow us to get it tested in-game in the very near future. And last but not least, we're working very hard on the Heavy Armor class for both Marine and Outlaw. We now have the 3D concept for the Heavy Outlaw going through rounds of feedback, and once that concept's approved, it'll move right on into the high poly modeling phase. While the Heavy Marine is in engine and headed over to the rigging team, then on to the final implementation. Well, that wraps us up for the LA Studio update. Thank you very much for your support, and see you again soon.
Thanks for the update, Eric. I think a lot of people are going to be excited about the plans for the ship page now that we're in better position to provide more accurate stats to everyone.
Yes, more accurate stats is always good. What got me excited, though, was the design of our player interaction system for Item 2.0 that has now gone into production. It's going to open up a whole universe of gameplay possibilities, taking our initial grabby hands idea and incorporating it with the inner thought system has created a ton of new options for designers to begin exploring. From looting to shopping to hanging out at the bar, it should be a lot of fun.
Very, very cool. And speaking of hanging out, next up, we take an in-depth look at our new chat and community platform, Spectrum. So let's head to Montreal to hear from our web development partner, Turbulent, on the tech it took to bring this new system online.
Star Citizen is a lot of things, and it's aiming to be a lot of things. It's a space simulator, it's a shooter, it's a full-blown universe you can play in first person. It's a lot of stuff at the same time. And a really important part and crucial part in this is the role-playing thing. That for me is what draws me the most to the project, is the fact that people can get immersed and play however they want, with any ship they want, any setting they want, and explore this whole thing and choosing like a career and a path, and basically living however they want in that universe. So if we wanted to do a communication platform for that game, we needed to have something that would reduce a lot of the friction that would happen naturally between the players and the tools that they would use to communicate.
So when we launched the crowdfunding campaign in 2012, we started with a traditional website and traditional forums and a service called Chatroll. And these systems worked pretty well for us in the beginning. They're very traditional. They're things people are comfortable with. And for the size of our community, it made perfect sense for us to do that. Over time on the platform, we've replaced or we've improved different pieces of these tools. For instance, we replaced Chatroll. There was a point where we outgrew Chatroll. We would have more people in chat than it could support, and it was sort of chaotic. So we built our own chat system based on XMPP, and that's on the service today, still on the platform today, in fact. We also talked a lot over the last several years about upgrading our forums to be more modern forums. And in fact, we've talked about a variety of things like building our own forum engines, having orgs, allowing orgs to have their own forums on our site. These are all major undertakings because we have, more than 30,000 organizations. And so if we allow every org to have their own forums, that means that you now have to support 30,000 different forum instances.
And so we went to Chris with the plan to build a new forum engine that we could replicate to all of the orgs, because most forum engine will allow us to do one instance, but we needed it to do 40,000 instances of forums. And so we came to Chris with this plan. We designed a forum engine to be modern, new ways to basically see threads with trending, replies and notifications, live updates. It was a very nice concept, but it was still just a forum engine.
So we needed to have a platform that would actually be part of the project itself, part of the game.
I think the key word became that we wanted this application to be available both in and out of game to cover for everything that's out of game. Because that's a real big part of your gaming experience today, is talking with your friends, setting up your game parties, organizing with your organizations, calendars and meetups. And so we wanted to build a framework that will allow us to build that into the game.
The organization system has been around for a while now. It's been actually 3 years, I think. And first of all, it has an amazing response ever since it got out. We saw the number of organizations created was amazing, but also the amount of involvement that players were showing with those. Just a simple set of tools that you could create your own presence for your organization and have a homepage that you could define, have text you could put in, and have your own brand and stuff. That's just a really simple set of tools, and people did amazing things with that. And now, with Spectrum, we've given that a whole new set of tools to cultivate that presence and actually cultivate the spirit of your organizations. Right now, when you play the game, you start in the website, you have your own inventory, and that feeds into the game. So that's one way that it interacts. But then Spectrum fits in there in that it is your presence as a player in Star Citizen, wherever you are, whether you're playing or not. That also gets fed by data from the organization system. So the organization system has been out for years now. It's been, I think, 3 years. And people really took to that when it got out, because it was the first time that you could actually role play into the universe of the game. And we were amazed by how many, first of all, the number, like how many organizations were created, but also like the implication of some players to sticking to a role and having their own entity and their own identity in their organizations, and having that define who they are in the game even when they play. Giving all of those organizations an outlet to have their own forums and chat systems was a lot of pressure on us because it meant that we were not just releasing something to replace the original forums and chat of Star Citizen. We were actually launching not one, but 30,000 forum engines and chats. And the opportunity for each of them to be customized whichever way their owners wanted them to be.
And so when we pitched it to Chris as a first iteration, he literally told us to think bigger, that we should expand on that and just try to fix communication as a whole, instead of just trying to replicate the forum engine.
So Benoit and I continued to brainstorm and come up with different ideas and found by looking at a lot of different systems that are out there, like Discord is popular, Reddit's very popular, things like Stack Overflow, things like other forum engines. We decided that we could tackle the challenge of building our own system that integrates all of these things.
And we started to design an application that would be unique to Star Citizen that could bridge this gap between the web experience that you get and the in-game experience that you're going to get when the game is fully integrated.
One of the cool features that comes with the release of Spectrum is social tools that add and improve to the user experience. An example of that is moderation tools that allow organizations to better manage and organize their communities.
You know, the team really stepped up, but quickly realized that this was going to be a gigantic challenge and not just a standard, development effort, that it would require many design cycles, many UX design cycles, and at the same time, technology innovation to be able to reach, to be able to ship it in a time that's, respectable.
Quand on a commencé à penser au design de Spectrum, on a instinctivement été vers du flat UI pour que ça soit facile à charger, fonctionnel et bien sûr facile à upgrader, à améliorer avec le temps parce qu'on a plein de fonctionnalités qu'on veut mettre dans Spectrum qui ne sont pas encore en ligne. Donc on a pensé au présent et au futur avec un design plus simple et épuré, ce qui permet d'avoir vraiment quelque chose le plus fonctionnel possible et qui ait le moins de frustration pour l'utilisateur possible lorsqu'il utilise Spectrum.
And so as we got pretty much done with the design aspect of the project, we realized not only how big the scope was, but we realized that it was going to be a huge technological challenge to get there. And so that's when, we all met up together and we were just like, all right, let's build this thing. And then we kept on trucking from there. So the first roadblocks that we encountered was that we didn't have the technology to build that. And so we really needed to extend the RSI platform to include a lot of real-time services that were going to be needed to power, lobbies, real-time forums, channels, and soon voice lobbies. But all of this needs to be built in a generic way. But now that we have this technology, we were able to stepstone to the next one. Other types of roadblocks that we encountered, a giant one was the technological stack for the actual application itself. And so we knew it had to be a web-based application. Now there are many, many options on what type of framework we can use to build an app like that. And so we set out to do a lot of research to figure out which stack we're going to use. This includes, what rendering technology we're going to use inside the browser, what kind of communication layer we're going to use. And so we ended up choosing React as a base platform, which is a framework from Facebook. It's open source. That's our baseline for the application. We also use the library that we're big fans of called Redux that gives us a way to manage state inside the application that's really streamlined. And so we started to move out everything into React. And we built the entire thing with it. And it became a hallmark in the team here. And this was an expertise that we sort of had internally, but that we really needed to expand on. And so a lot of the team members that joined the Spectrum team were, initially not very proficient in this technology, but then really learned quickly based on Laurent's work in order to really facilitate getting the rest of the features online. And so we were able to basically silo that up between developers. And so, people would focus on a specific set of features, build it out without interfering with the others, and then bring that into the main line so we could iterate quickly. And so that was a really big win, because building traditional apps, HTML5 apps like we did in the past, like the original RSI platform, would not have scaled to this kind of functionality and state transition. And so we're really happy about that. And so other types of roadblocks that we hit was on the server side. And so there's a special use case for a web application that's different when you think about online connections. And so the Spectrum is using WebSocket connections for everything, which is a way for us to get real-time updates on the client. And so one of the major roadblocks we hit really early was the fact that let's say you compare the game to Spectrum. In game, you're going to have only one connection per account or per character, right? And so the way the servers manage it is that you're connected once. On Spectrum, though, you can have multiple connections, and so you can have multiple tabs open. You can have one tab open in the game, one tab open in your browser, one on your phone, and so you're connected multiple places. And so we have all this class of problems that come from that. Like which connection is active, which connection is inactive. Are you the same user? Are you disconnected? And now, when you add the concept of presence to that becomes fairly complex, because then you can be online on a tab, away on another one. And so we had to basically brainstorm multiple versions of our presence system in order to get to something that's pretty comfortable, which is you have user control on certain presence statuses, but other statuses are automatically toggled. For example, online, away, and playing are automatically toggled by the system across your connections. And so are you also offline, right? So if all your connections go offline, then you're offline, but then if you're reconnected from your mobile, then you're online, right? And so there's this whole differentiation between online, offline, and then presence details that come in. And so our first iteration of our prototype was very, very simple, and we had a single threaded presence system that was over there, but then we quickly realized when we started having multiple connections and that this was not going to scale. And so we had to bring other engineers in to basically build the proper presence service, which also turns out to be the first contact point that we had with the game, which was really exciting for us, because then we were able to get your presence status from the game, whether you're in menus, in the Star Marine, in Arena Commander, in your hangar, into Spectrum. And so, you're online, and then you go online in the game, and then it changes. And that for us was like a super kick-ass moment, because it's like, wow, now we're bridging this gap, and that's the vision for this application, right? And that's the first wall that we're breaking down between the game and Spectrum, and it's not going to be the last. And so this whole roadblock of the presence system was a major one, but we're glad we tackled it this way, because now we have a lot of flexibility in how we display presence, and that's going to be a core piece of element for moving forward. And so the way we engaged with the community for testing Spectrum was interesting, and I think it's something that we're going to redo quite a bit. We really want to make this a bit different in this process. We have the chance of working on a component of the game which is not directly related to the story or lore, and so I think we can share a lot more of our development. Like we've already been sharing with you guys the type of technologies that we're using, and we plan on keeping doing that in the future. But the way we engage with the community is that we went to PTU fairly early in the process back in December, and our initial goal was to go at this frantic pace of releasing our build every week to the community on PTU. And so that's what we set out to do in December, and we did that. But not only did we want to ship builds and build notes and whatever, which is standard, but we also wanted to be there with the players on PTU, talk about Spectrum, and be involved in the testing, because sometimes you need this personal connection with players in order to understand what the problem is, if there's a design issue, if there's an actual bug, right? And so this frantic pace, we kept it for up to the launch in February, and so we're really happy about that, because it gave us this proximity with players that allowed us to change the app entirely. You can ask any members of the Evocati group, Spectrum version 0.1 and version 0.3, what's the difference? It's pretty major, because we've listened to feedback quite a bit initially to be able to fix. It's all in small details, which is there's broad strokes, but a lot of small details got adjusted that were a big deal. And so we're really happy about that proximity, and we want to continue to do that. Of course, on the live service, we can go as fast, but we still plan to do an update a month, even more if we can, but as long as there is no breaking change, we're good. But we really want to keep that momentum going, and so that you guys can see how fast Spectrum is progressing, since we don't have any special hide this feature thing, right? And so we can talk openly about what's coming up. There's a lot next for Spectrum, but in the short to immediate term, we're reviewing feedback. We're looking at what you guys are telling us about the release, We know we have a lot of things to adjust. Like the launch was pretty hectic, but it was good. But now we have technology changes to make. In the short term, we're going to just, I think, spend a lot of time on the forum part of Spectrum to make it reach a little feature parity with the old forums. So we want to, spruce it up a bit.
Additionally, we're reviving the Ask a Dev section that you may remember from the forums. It allows backers to ask questions to developers in real time so they can gather more information about what's up and coming or specifics about systems we've already announced. We're really excited about it because Spectrum allows us to do this initiative, and we have some new and exciting stuff coming up in the future.
There's a lot more functionality to come with respect to presence, more, we call it rich presence, to actually know to a very detailed level where you are in the game. And that would allow us to do more things around parties and grouping and location awareness. We could have location-aware chat lobbies and location-aware, other location-aware services.
One of my favorite parts about Spectrum is that it brings a lot of my favorite features from things like Reddit, Discord, and a few others, and brings them all into one place that's easily accessible by the entire Star Citizen community.
There's also a few modifications we want to make in how the sorting works. As you guys know, Spectrum supports like classic style sorting and more Reddit style sorting. And so we want to keep this duality and give you guys the power to do that within your orgs. But we want to increase the feature set on that front. So expect like a bunch of short updates to forums moving forward. Our big ticket items in the what's next category is obviously mobile app. And so we currently support mobile, but we want to have a real native experience on mobile. And so we're going to be working on mobile ports.
But if you allow yourself to dream much further than that, you can also imagine stuff like a complete communication system with voice, where you could have a let's imagine you're in your ship, you're manning your ship with a couple of friends. You have actually two communication channels that you can switch between. One that is for people who are actually manning the ship and having an actual role in the ship, and another one is like a PA system, blaring information to people who are not just manning the ship, but also like not the crew itself, but passengers or boarders. And you could like switch between the two during the game and coordinate with your friends to counter that attack that is occurring right now.
Ultimately, Spectrum will replace our current forums, which are very traditional, functional, but very traditional forums. It will replace our XMPP chat, and it will give orgs their own forums to work with as well. So we have achieved our initial goal already with the launch of Spectrum, of giving every org their own private forum to deal with, having a live chat, and having all of these modern functions built in.
So if you guys haven't tried it already, I invite you to come online and on Spectrum and give it a shot. If you see anybody from Turbulent online, feel free to reach out to them and talk to them about Spectrum. Now, don't flood them, but you can ask questions. We have this policy that we want to be super open about this development. And so any questions you have or ideas that you have, bring them to us, and we'll try to do what we can with it.
Seeing where Spectrum's headed, I think you can really see how much it's going to bring to the game. What we have right now is just the beginning. We'll be adding a lot more functionality, like bringing across the full organization setup to Spectrum, a wider variety of thread styles, adding VoIP, integrating closely with the game so you can see not only which of your friends are online, but where and what they are doing, as long as they actually put that option on, because we've got to respect your privacy. Going from chatting online to connecting with your friends in-game on the same platform is going to redefine how players connect with Star Citizen and each other. So I'm really excited by what it's going to bring.
I am too, because staying connected with all of you is very important to us, and it's a big reason why we create such a wide variety of behind-the-scenes content every week. That's it for this episode of ATV. We'd like to thank all of our subscribers for giving us this level of community involvement.
Yeah, thank you very much for all of that. And even though we say this every week, it stays just as true. We would not be able to build a game as wonderfully complex and immersive as Star Citizen if it was not for our community of backers. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we would like to invite all of you to join us tomorrow at 12 Pacific for the latest Star Citizen Happy Hour stream for some live gameplay as well as something very special.
Yeah, this week's guest will be character art director Josh Herman, who will be creating a new creature concept live on the stream. So good luck to him for that. And while taking suggestions from the chat, it's not something you're going to want to miss.
Coming up now, as promised, is the exclusive premiere of the brand new Anvil Hurricane, going on sale tomorrow.
Yeah, so take a look, and we'll see you
Around the verse.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.